PJNet Live Phase 1, Part 1, the first half. We have standing by in our green room LaTan Roland Murphy. We are rolling a bumper, and we have a wonderful background awaiting her. We have a chat room that is happy and active. Let's get rolling. We will switch to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, it's Wednesday night here on PJNet Live. I am glad you're here. I am really glad to be here tonight. This is really one of those nights that you kind of dream about. It's hard to get some of the people that are generous enough to share their time with us, but they're very busy people. And it's kind of hard to get everything coordinated and work your way in between events. But not only do we have one, we have two such people tonight. And the first one is an alumnus of this wonderful institution of higher learning. I don't even know how to pronounce it. And Trevecca. Now, you know, one thing that before I actually bring our guest on board, I have some homework to do that should have been done earlier. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Just stand by, folks. This is live, you know. And we're going to go all the way to the great state, I believe, of North Carolina to bring you LaTan Roland Murphy. Now, I'm going to do a little something that's it's gonna make everybody dizzy, but it will pay off in the long run. Let me do this right now. I just wanted to move you a little closer to me, LaTan. Let's get cozy right there. Okay, okay. You feel dizzy?
I'm good.
You are so. You are. And LaTan, I feel like I have been herding cats, trying to corner you. I don't know, maybe you broke your leg or something and you had to slow down, and I was able to catch up with you. But my gosh, girl, when do you eat? When do you sleep? When do you do anything for yourself?
It's a crazy, awesome life. It's really been a busy season. I'm just really thankful that we were able to coordinate this tonight. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
Well, we want to hear about, you. Tell us about your alma mater. I grabbed that from Facebook, and it obviously is dear to your heart. So go ahead and share with us about your time there and how it impacts you today.
I can't say enough good things about Trevecca University, located in Nashville, Tennessee. It is the place where I graduated from college with double major and a minor, and met my husband there, met best friends who remain my dearest friends today, who are friends that have stood beside me in death and in joys and in celebration and in sad times, good times, and they've become lifelong friends. And all these years later, any one of them I could call up and say, I need you, and they would be there in a snap. Trevecca really reshaped my life as a person. The professors and teachers and even the people that served in the background were there for one reason, and that was to serve with authenticity and to love the students to a higher place of betterment. And I definitely reaped the harvest of all of those incredible people. I'm really thankful.
Well, clearly being a college professor, but that many careers are a profession, but they are also a calling. That's a trend that's kind of a lost art, seems.
Yes, it is. And you know, one professor stands out in my mind. Her name was Carol Costa, and she was my English professor. And I remember the first paper that I had to write for her English class. She gave me a 100 on it, which was really a blessing. If you knew the student that I was growing up, you would understand the gravity of why this 100 meant so much to me. And now looking back as a writer and a speaker, I really give her the credit for being a springboard of confidence for me in that season to really dig my heels in and pursue writing in a different way and pursue the gift of using my words with power to influence people's lives and to make sure that I used the power of words in such a positive way that my heart wants and still continues to desire that I leave people better than I found them based on what I say to them when I have opportunity to spend time with them. I don't always get that right, trust me. But I hope for that. You're laughing because can you relate to that? Like you want so much to be that person.
I am so struggling because it's not my place here to take over the show, but you have reminded me of my first college paper. And I just have to share this. I don't know. I came from I graduated with 18 in my class, Christian school, private school. So I went to college. My first college paper also got a 100, but I didn't know that because I was called into the professor's office. And I thought, I am in trouble because our first 500-word essay was to be a how-to paper. How to. So I wrote a paper on how to throw a hunch punch party. And I thought I was in major trouble, because again, I came from this little Christian school and now I had freedom, academic. They were so impressed with it, they wanted to incorporate it into the curriculum of the class and wanted my permission.
Oh, how awesome is that?
I'm not particularly proud of that today, but it literally happened. I was,
Hey, I think it's great. I love that you shared that. We're talking about.
Well, I'm just being authentic here, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Were you a bad girl in college? I mean, were you partying hard and doing all that stuff, or cheerleader? How's that Trevecca football team doing this year? Do they need a coach?
They are. They don't have a football team, but a funny story that I'll share. When my husband and I were in school there, they did have an intramural football team, and after we got married, he still continued to play on this intramural football team. And so I wanted his uniform to be squeaky clean. And so I put a lot of Clorox in the washing machine. This is really getting real and authentic with the listeners. I put, as a young bride, too much Clorox in the washing machine with his football uniform. And the game that he played next up, every time he would go down for a play, it would begin to tear because the Clorox was disintegrating.
Eats up the elastic, yeah.
It was so bad by the end of the game. He looked like, if any of you that are listening remember the show Incredible Hulk, which was a man who would transform into a beast of a giant, and then his clothes would burst off him, and tear off him. That's how he looked by the end of this football game, Mark. It was hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Let's get serious a minute. One reason we haven't had you on earlier is we just can't find a time. Yeah. You're very, very busy, but you're very, very busy doing something very, very important. Now, you're very accomplished as a writer, and we'll get to that. But most of your emphasis is on public speaking, right?
Right. Yes. I would say so, yes.
What do you talk about?
Oh, I talk about things that are relative to everybody as just human nature. We talk about anger issues. We talk about jealousy issues. We talk about competition issues. We talk about wearing the mask and trying to be something that we're not, and how much better it is to live transparently. Those are just a few of the topics.
How did you get started in the public speaking thing? Is it do you like get an agent, or did you just kind of fall in? How do you get established? I mean, you're in demand now, so help these young aspiring speakers So
I'm going to be authentic and tell you that I would never have sought after platform speaking. I still come to the Lord and say, I feel little bit like Moses with a speech impediment, um, every single time. And the way it came about was my mother-in-law was dying of cancer, and she knew that I had a dream to write a book. And she approached me and said, I want you to write a book, and we're going to have to self-publish it because I'm on this timetable. And she said, I want to hold one of your books in my hands before Jesus takes me home. And so I did it. I just put aside what the industry would say about that at the time. At the time, self-publishing was not looked upon very highly. And I did this, and it was the most wonderful, treasured time between us. And the reason it's important that I share that with you is because that little book, Becoming a Woman of Interior Elegance, was the springboard for a speaking career that I had no idea that God was working towards in the moments of my obedience in writing this book alongside my mother-in-law as she was in her last season. So you never know. I always say, don't say no to God, because sometimes when you say no to things that seem too small for you, or maybe you're looking for the bigger, better thing in the moment, just surrender your heart and be wide open to live authentic and to live humbly and to ask God, is this what you have for me in this season? If I had said no to her because of my fear of what people would say, or that it could possibly ruin my opportunity to be published in mainstream market, look at the blessing I would have missed out on today, because every speaking opportunity snowballed after that first initial invitation, which came from a book that I wrote very quickly.
Were you a little bit afraid your first time up on stage?
I was terrified. I remember the night before I left. First of all, I was shocked by the invitation because, as I said, I would never have pursued speaking. That was not on my radar.
You didn't solicit this. It dropped in your lap. They came to you.
No, it dropped in my lap from this book. Someone read the book and called me. It was a women's ministers director, and she said, we're having a ladies retreat. We loved your book. We want you to be the keynote. And I was floored because that was not at all. This was like 20, 25 years ago. And that wasn't at all what I would have pursued myself. And yet God knew where he wanted to position me and how he wanted to do it and on what timetable. And so after that event, there was a woman in the audience who had a connection to someone in Chicago. And then I received a phone call to come to Chicago and speak there, which I went back a couple of times there. It was really wonderful. And then from that point forward, it was just by invitation, not at all by self-promotion, but just by a surrendered heart. And I'm not knocking anybody out there who is promoting themselves and trying to get a career going in a speaking path. I think it's wonderful, and you definitely, especially nowadays, have to let people know. You really do have to let people know that you are available in a way that is provided for us nowadays through social media, which I didn't have all that at that time. But I had God.
Yeah.
And so do you, my friend, whoever's listening.
I since we're being authentic, when I was in college, I certainly was living for the world. I mean, things of God were not on my mind at all, other than those things God created that were female, and wheat and barley and hops and things of that nature. But to afford the bounty of God in the way of wheat, barley, and hops, I got a job at a radio station part-time. And this was not just any radio station. This was 100,000 watt FM rock station, number one in the market.
Wow.
And boy, that first time in front of the mic, is tough. But once you do that a while, you become comfortable with it. Now I look back on that today and say, little did I know, and this may just be a fantasy of mine. I don't know. I didn't hear this from God, okay? But my take on it is, yes, I was living for the world, but God had a plan, because he knew someday my place would be in front of an audience and behind a microphone. Little did I know he would have me in front of a camera. I feel more comfortable behind it than in front of it. But it just doesn't bother me at all if there's 100,000 people or 10. It would really make no difference to me what the message was and the passion with which I would deliver it. I'm talking too much now.
No.
You speak quite a bit. Like, how many speaking engagements in a typical week or month? I mean, kind of look backwards over the past whatever and tell us where you've been. Boom, boom, boom. Because every time I try to connect with you, you're off somewhere, going somewhere. I thought you was trying to avoid me. I really did.
No. A real highlight for me was being invited to speak in Alaska, and specifically a highlight because I knew that God orchestrated that, because my youngest son at the time was Alaskan mountain guide there in the town, as large as Alaska is, in the same town of Skagway, Alaska, as he was working. And this was last summer. That was just an incredible opening that I knew God set up for many reasons. That was a really great memory. But I would say I'm trying to be a little more careful, and in this season especially, to not overschedule myself and to try to keep it at 2 events a month.
Okay.
Because I have so many other things on my plate also.
Well, professionally, there's a thing called overexposure. If you, Peter Frampton went down in flames in part because of that. You do know who that is, don't you?
Yeah.
Peter? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I'm with
but
you.
he was his producer very much overexposed him. Too many bookings, and after a while, that make to be high in value, it also has to be kind of scarce. So you want to be a little bit scarce, but more importantly, burnout. Too much of a good thing is a recipe for disaster. But it's
so true.
I don't struggle with burnout. I do struggle with fatigue. Do you?
Oh, I do, especially in this season. And I'm thinking right now of an event that I teach at every year, and I also lead worship at, which is at the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove for the Asheville Christian Writers Conference. And it's been an honor and a privilege to do that for probably 5 years now. But this year, when I received my contract, which was a couple weeks ago, and I was actually going to sign it, I was excited because I love these people. They are my tribe, and as I said, it's an honor to be able to teach at the Billy Graham Training Center. And the Holy Spirit just really nudged me and said, not next year. You're not to be there on that weekend next year. And so I really am trying in the season, Mark, to, instead of just signing up yes, to really pause long enough and say, Holy Spirit, is this my appointment for the season? Because there are so many other demands in my life.
Yeah.
So it's been a beautiful thing to experience that, is to be that authentic with the Lord, and to be able to say, and also, there's a point where you go, ooh, I don't want to give that up. They could ask somebody else. I may never get invited again because I've been there year after year. But, so there's this humility and also a surrender that you have to really be willing to lay aside what your mind perceives as the most important thing, sometimes to take care of yourself, So.
From the chat room, Doug Carter says, LaTan's an excellent singer. I met her at the Asheville, North Carolina Christian Writers Conference last February.
Isn't that funny? We're talking about that.
Yeah. A couple minutes left.
Hi, friend.
That is Doug Carter, and let's see. Very quickly, we got to wrap it up because Michelle's coming up in a few minutes. You have a book.
Yes, a recent book.
Can I see it?
Would
you happen to have a copy of it?
I moved it. I know. Here's my teaching copy right here, because I mark on the front teaching copy.
Okay.
Because I mark it up and all the things. But this is my recent book, Courageous Women of the Bible, leaving behind fear and insecurity for a life of confidence and freedom. And I really love it when I hear that the men are reading it too. So,
Oh, that's.
um,
I wish we had more time. I want to put your website up on the screen,
yeah.
latanmurphy.com. I've been there. It's a pretty nice website.
Thank you.
I presume
Thank
all
you.
of the links and resources and things like
Yeah.
that. Gosh, there was something else that was on my mind. We talked earlier today, just doing the dry run. What are you hearing after the speaking's done and all the stage gear is coming down and people are milling around? What do people come up to you and say that sticks out in your mind?
You know what always humbles me the most, far above you are a great speaker, is that you are so approachable, and that you seem to not put yourself here. And I can't even tell you what that means to me, because I certainly do not deserve to be here. I know that I am nothing without Christ at the center of my sinful core, Mark. And it's just always really humbling to me that a holy God would invite me to participate in anything heavenly. So I think that means the most to me, is that people find me approachable. Because if people trust your heart and they know that you genuinely care about them, that you are not doing what you're doing solely to promote yourself, that you want to invest all the goodness that God has invested in you into them so that they can experience his more also. That would be my best answer. Yeah.
I bet there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. We're out of
Yeah. Oh,
time.
yeah.
Let's do this again. There's so much.
I
There's so
love
much I
it.
would
I would
love to
love
talk
it.
about, and I appreciate you making
Yeah.
time. I know it's been quite a journey just to, just to stop and say, here, connect, press this button. But
Well, I was honored that you would invite me on
well,
your fabulous show. I've enjoyed listening in to my good friends Dale and also Michelle
yeah.
and many other people. And you do a really great job. And I pray God's blessings on your show. Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to
Well,
come back.
oh, can't wait. Let's do it. Oh, okay. Well, folks, gosh, we ran out of time. How fast can 20 minutes go? LaTan Roland Murphy, right here on PJNet Live. She is an alumnus of this wonderful institution, Trevecca University. Nazarene, it says, university. They don't have a football team. That's why I have to kind of be, prompted on these things. All right, listen, we are going to continue with PJNet Live in, about 10 minutes. We have got to tear down the studio, rebuild everything, because at the bottom of the hour, we have Michelle Medlock Adams, and she's got some news for us as PJNet Live continues. All right, that's